That's exactly what's going to happen. Get out or I'm going to pepper spray you. Get out. This is your first warning. Get out or you're going to be pepper sprayed.
Prison is about submission and compliance. This is no place for teenage defiance.
Get over the corner now. This is your third warning. When the door opens, you're not back and spraying you.
The Fifth Estate has obtained this video shot by prison staff. We received it with guards' faces obscured and voices altered. They've blasted her cell with pepper spray. It's just another day in the life of inmate Ashley Smith.
You ready to comply? You make one move, I'm going to pepper spray you again. You understand that? Open the door. Door in the corner. Get your clothes off.
What corner?
Do you understand me?
Yes!
Tonight, we go behind the walls, right into the cell, to see what the jailers do not want you to know. I'm Hannah Gartner. This is the Fifth Estate. We have obtained prison videotape that we are making public for the first time, and I caution you, the images are disturbing and the language is raw, but it exposes just how kids with mental health and behavioral problems are treated behind bars in this country. This is the desperate journey of inmate Ashley Smith, a troubled young girl who cried out for help and never got it. She may be unusual, but her story is not unique. And it begins not as you might predict, but in a nice, neat home with parents who really care.
She had one home visit, which was for a day, and then she was released twice, but it only lasted around 24 hours. This is her room. This is an Ashley grown-up room. This is what she would have had coming home. We've got her 400 dolls. Someone said, oh, she wasn't a girly girl to play with dolls. So this is her doll collection.
A mother's shrine to the sweet, playful girl she adopted when Ashley was only 5 days old, the child she wants to remember. And looking around this room, there is not one clue to how everything went so terribly wrong. Okay, sit.
So have a seat.
Sit.
Yep. We'll sit.
You okay?
Yes.
You come up here?
I come in and dust and clean a bit, but no. It's not my favorite spot.
Ashley's photograph doesn't give any hints either. Not the face of a tough street kid, and she wasn't one as a little girl growing up in Moncton, New Brunswick. But then Ashley began to change. Her father, Herb, remembers when the trouble started.
Trouble started? Well, when she got, I'd say about 13, 14 years old.
By grade 8, Ashley was failing, and she was regularly getting expelled for being defiant, disrespectful, and disruptive. She was breaking the rules, she was thrown out, she wasn't going to class.
Yes, and it made it hard at home, too. It made it hard at home.
In what way?
Well, when she come home, and her mother had asked her how come she come home, and she would say, well, I got kicked out for no reason at all, and it's always somebody else's fault.
It seems the only thing Ashley was good at was being bad. She committed so many minor offenses that she was in and out of youth court more than a dozen times. So what was going on?
What was going on?
With Ashley?
With Ashley, she was just I would say, on the verge of being out of control. We hired a child psychologist. Like, we did what we thought we were supposed to do.
Ashley had been diagnosed with learning disabilities, but there had been no real follow-up. And that psychologist Coralie hired did not identify mental illness, just behavioral issues, impulsivity, not understanding consequences. And all that came to a head the day she had the run-in with the mailman.
Apparently, there was somebody in the neighborhood saying the welfare checks weren't coming in, and she said, "Oh, they're not." Well, I'll speed him up, or where's that effect? There were other kids with her. She wasn't there alone. So they threw crab apples at him, and of course, you're assaulting a public employee. I mean, so that's what got her to the first step on the road to incarceration.
Crab apples?
Crab apples. Crab apples.
Already on probation for trespassing and causing a disturbance at the mall, Ashley was sentenced to a juvenile detention center in Miramichi, a 2-hour drive from home. The New Brunswick Youth Center describes itself as a safe and secure environment for youth aged 12 to 17.
This is a youth center primarily, and so the focus was therapeutic.
New Brunswick ombudsman and child advocate Bernard Richard.
What we're seeing more and more, and both in the adult system and in the youth center, is a growing number of kids who are manifesting mental health problems, behavior disorders. We're using our prison system as a de facto mental health facility.
Fuck, I don't like that.
Her first day ever at the youth center. When you first walk in, they strip search you, okay? So she was like 13, 14. First day there, and they're telling her to take her clothes off.
Jessica Fair was in the cell next to Ashley's. She was doing time for running away from a group home and was a little more streetwise than Ashley.
Obviously, she got scared. They didn't explain anything to her, and she refused to do it. So from the second that she got in there, that she got tackled and thrown in the hole. TQ.
TQ?
Yeah. It's supposed to be therapeutic quiet time.
Therapeutic.
It's not very therapeutic, though. You're in a cell for like 5 days. Light doesn't shut off.
Control open up A161 and A160.
Every time they opened her cell door for the first couple of weeks, she'd attack them. Because she didn't know what to expect. She was just like a baby in there.
Jessica says apart from anger management and drug addiction counseling, there were no programs and few activities. But there was one aspect of life in the youth center they became very familiar with: security procedures.
They'll tell you the procedure. You can kneel up in your bunk, your face against the wall, arms behind your back. They'll come in, they'll cuff you, put shackles on you, and leave your cell. They say they're only supposed to keep you in for, I think, 4 hours. There's a lot of times we were left in it all night long.
Stop fucking squeezing my neck. Please.
What confuses me, on the one hand, you say it's a therapeutic environment where the youngest kid is 12 years old, and where in the end it really is just a jail.
In fact, they would call segregation therapeutic quiet, which I became quite upset over the use of that term, because I think it's a softening of very hard reality and doublespeak.
Ashley just called it the hole. It's where she and her friend Jessica were spending 23 hours a day. How did the two of you make time pass?
Annoying the guards.
Annoying the guards? This was the kick?
Yeah.
Spit in your fucking face.
Why was she provoking everybody so much?
She was in there so long, and it was quite entertaining to get them going. There's people that she didn't like that was working and stuff.
Just to make them crazy. Just to give them a hard time.
Oh yeah. Like, if she thought she was in there for a stupid reason, and if it didn't make sense to her, then she was going to make their shift hell.
Just a quick camera note, she was attempting to play towards.
I was not bite.
Even in solitary, guards had trouble controlling Ashley. She managed to accumulate 800 documented incidents, from covering her cell window with feces to simply refusing to hand over a hairbrush.
Kneel on the bunk. Kneel on the bunk. Because, you know why. After 3 warnings there, I'll come in 3 times. Kneel on the bunk.
Told me about 3 warnings.
Kneel on the bunk.
And when Ashley didn't get her way, she'd up the ante and pretend to strangle herself.
So Ashley would wrap something around her neck, because in TQ you have a camera on you 24/7, right? So the people would obviously see it, and they come down and see what the problem was.
But this is a really dangerous game.
Yeah, but she used to always laugh about it, because she said they're stupid because they can clearly see it hanging down. Like, it was never tight. She always told me that she didn't want to die, and she used to laugh that they thought she was suicidal.
160 control, please.
For correctional officers, this was no joke. In this footage obtained by the Fifth Estate, a guard decides Ashley's repeated attempts to choke herself call for a tactical response.
I feel this is a very high risk of self-harm on YP Smith's. She said she's not going to discontinue, so I think we got to go to the next step, which is the route. Swallow my stature there, Ashley. It makes me over quick.
No.
In order to immobilize Ashley, guards strap her into a cocoon-like device they call the wrap.
No.
Hold her.
I don't like this.
This is Ashley's first time in the wrap, but it won't be her last.
Just so you don't harm yourself. And so you don't harm yourself while you're in the wrap there, Miss Smith, so.
How the fuck do I harm myself and I can't even move?
Pick up that thing there.
No.
Herself. When you're talking to her.
She's left there, forced to lie in her own urine.
So are we ready to go to sleep now tonight, or are we?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, just to let you know, you continue on. This is right on here. You continue on. I've got this tool, and it's not very cool. You understand that? Do you understand that? Okay? Do you understand that? Okay? So what happened?
I pissed myself. Like 3 hours ago when I told you.
Our story continues when we return.
Ashley was tasered twice in the space of 1 month. Repeatedly, that was the response to her behaviors.
After almost 3 years in solitary confinement at the New Brunswick Youth Center, 18-year-old Ashley Smith has been moved to an adult prison. Alone and despondent, she writes in her diary, "If I die, then I will never have to worry about upsetting my mom again." During a Christmas visit with Ashley, Coralie was horrified to see the scars on her daughter's arms. Ashley was cutting herself.
I don't understand how you could be segregated and still be scarring and damaging yourself as bad as you are. And nobody saying, well, you know, this is getting worse. This is not getting better. You and I know it's a cry for help. They didn't treat us so.
Ashley, you go and kneel on the bunk. Okay, are you comply? Are you going to comply?
Whatever Ashley's psychological problems, this New Brunswick prison video shows the treatment she got.
Are you going to get up on the bunk?
Ashley is in her cell naked, but the guards believe she has hidden a shoelace and intends to choke herself.
Ashley, if you refuse to comply to this charge order, you must now hit a 50,000 volts, okay? And take this.
Armed with tasers, guards fire a warning shot.
Ready? You comply, Ashley? Kneel on the bunk.
Ashley was tasered twice in the space of 1 month. Repeatedly, that was the response to her behaviors.
New Brunswick's ombudsman investigated how youth with behavioral problems are treated in custody. In Bernard Richard's opinion, prison made Ashley worse.
I think someone should have clued in that this girl required much more professional help.
No one knew how to handle Ashley because no one knew what was wrong with her. In all the time she was at the youth center, she never had a comprehensive mental health assessment. It was the same in every prison she was moved to.
Come up there. Put the hands up there now. This is your first warning. Leave them there.
Would you get that out of my fucking face?
No.
Please.
All they could do for Ashley was restrain her and give her more prison time. A 1-month sentence had stretched into more than 3 years, and it was taking a toll on Ashley's mental health. But her life was about to change. The decision had been made to move her to a federal penitentiary. Why did the superintendent of the New Brunswick Youth Center apply to have Ashley transferred to the adult prison? I mean, he didn't have to do that.
Without question, they were at wit's end. They, I think, really felt that she might be able to get more help in the federal system.
Did he think she would get more help in the federal system, or did he just want her out of his hair?
Oh, well, without a doubt, he wanted her out of his hair. I mean, she monopolized a lot of his resources.
And before she was transferred, they allowed me to go in the cell with her, and she was just devastated. She was just shaking, crying. She was devastated.
But Coralie was still hopeful. Canada's Correctional Service is, after all, the largest employer of psychologists in the country. They claim access to the world's most renowned experts. This is a healing environment, is what Coralie was told. They promised to take care of her?
All along, all along. We'll take care of her, we'll take care of her, we'll look after her.
Of the 3 women's penitentiaries Ashley would do time in, Grand Valley Institution in Kitchener, Ontario is the biggest. Built with female inmates in mind, it has a more homey look and offers a mental health program tailored especially to women. It's the kind of help Ashley could have used, but the warden locked her in segregation the minute she got here. Corrections Canada cancelled our interview with Grand Valley's current warden. They sent senior advisor Dan Erickson to talk to us on the condition we do not ask about Ashley Smith.
Segregation isn't punitive. One thing about corrections, it's all about human relations and human relationships. How we do that helps individuals so that people can be helped to recover from some of the problems that they may have. There's 4 segregation cells in this unit, and we'll just take a look at one of the cells that we have open right now. So this is a segregation cell with a closable window and a food slot. This would be a typical segregation cell in most institutions, except it usually probably would be square. You'll be visited by a nurse every day. You'll be visited by a correctional manager or a parole officer or a psychologist. And the other times you'll be either watching TV or reading or doing other activities.
She didn't have anything to do in her cell. She had indicated that she had been out without a mattress often, that she'd been denied at times even toilet paper. When she was menstruating, she'd been denied access to adequate, hygiene products.
Kim Pate is the head of the Elizabeth Fry Society, a national organization advocating for women in prison.
The first time I met with her was just through the mail slot.
So what did this cell look like? What did she have in there?
She had nothing. Both times I saw her, she had nothing in her cell.
This is how Ashley would spend the next year of her life in various federal prisons across this country.
Well, she would sleep on the floor usually, is what she'd report. She was using her security gown to try and wrap tightly around her, and other women said she was picking the tiles off the floor in the hopes that they'd replace it with carpet so she could sleep.
So she's 18, 19 years old. She's in segregation, locked into a cell 23 hours out of every 24.
Howard Sapers is convinced isolating inmates with mental disorders is unsafe and inhumane. He's the federally appointed correctional investigator.
Why would you think that in Canada that the best our correctional service could offer a mentally ill young woman was an isolation cell? If you are already acting out, if you're already into self-injury, if you have suicidal ideation, that isolation is not the place for you to be.
I can't see it very good. But that is where she served her entire sentence, defiant as ever. And just like in the New Brunswick Youth Center, this all had to be documented and videotaped.
Ashley, what? You give those back now.
No. Canada's Correctional Service fought to prevent us from showing you these tapes.
Hey, that's an assault!
We had to get a court order to make this public.
I never did see the videotape. I can't speak for that, but what I can tell you is that on numerous occasions, and it's well documented, that these officers went in and saved this woman's life.
She's trying to help you, Ash. She's trying to help you. Trying to help you, she never leaves me alone!
Ontario Guards Union President Jason Godin.
So they allowed her a television set. What did she do? She basically took the pieces from that television set, used them as weapons. She would suitcase glass.
What does that mean?
She would put glass in her body cavities.
Glass?
Yes, glass in her hair and in any one of her body cavities, and she would use that against correctional officers when they came in the cell.
She also used the glass to cut strips from her prison gown. Ashley was strangling herself, often several times a day.
Sometimes Ashley Smith would fake dying, so she would just lay on the floor. And then, of course, there would come a point in time they would have to go in because she was unresponsive. So they would go in the cell, and at that point she might jump right up and assault them with a piece of glass or try to hit them or whatever. So it was a very difficult situation to be in.
There was nothing in their 12 weeks of training that prepared guards for an inmate like Ashley Smith.
The sad truth is that in our experience, we've seen those things happen with other inmates. So why the correctional service continues to do the same thing and expect different results confounds me.
Spontaneous use of force on Miss Ashley Smith. It's August 31st. It is 9:05 p.m.
Every time this happened, it had to be written up as a use of force report.
Spray has been used.
Ashley generated 150 of them. At Grand Valley, she set a prison record.
Every time that there was one of these security incidents, there would be a posting made in a daily report, a daily situation report, which is circulated broadly throughout the senior management of the correctional service.
And who all gets that?
Well, as I say, it's the management of the correctional service.
All the way to Ottawa.
All the way to the top.
When you issue those use of force reports, it should trigger the correctional investigator knowing about it, national headquarters at Correctional Services knowing about it. It should trigger someone saying, what is going on here?
Canada's Correctional Service was concerned about the number of use of force reports coming out of Grand Valley. It didn't make them look good. They decided to do something about it. We have learned the warden ordered staff to alter documents, to downplay, minimize the guards' use of force. And the Fifth Estate has obtained the management plan for inmate A. Smith. In it, the warden instructs guards to avoid Ashley completely, to ignore her even if she is choking herself.
CSC was worried about their public image. They were saying, oh geez, too many use of force incidents here. So what CSC decided to do was, we're going to give direction down the line. We're going to tell those members not to intervene until she stops breathing. And eventually our members were being told, look, if you go in that cell and you go and use force to take the ligature off her neck, you're going to be disciplined. You could be fired.
If the direction was don't go in while she's breathing, that's what, go in when she's dead?
Well, we're left asking ourselves the same question. Why is the direction coming down the line not to go in and preserve her life? Ashley Smith was a time bomb waiting to go off.
Are you not trying to harm yourself?
I didn't try!
Ashley's story continues when we come back.
I thought Ashley was coming home. I never thought Ashley was going to die in prison.
Once her daughter was sent to the federal prison system, Coralie Smith couldn't keep track of her. Corrections Canada transferred Ashley 17 times between 9 institutions in less than a year.
Last time, I visited Ashley at Nova. Her eyes were off. I thought she was on drugs. She told me later she had lost sight in one eye. She looked like an aged woman. Her hair was falling out. In the 11 months that she was in the federal system, she lost 90 pounds.
Ashley was strangling herself so often the veins in her face had burst. While she did see a psychologist every day, she was never fully assessed or meaningfully treated. She wasn't in one place long enough. Ashley's father wants to know, where was that psychological care Corrections Canada promised?
They were supposed to give her therapy and they were supposed to send her to a psychiatrist, which I don't think they did. They didn't do that. They just, out of sight, out of mind. Leave her there and that's it.
Correctional investigator Howard Sapers points out that failure to provide care is against the law, so is keeping someone in segregation indefinitely.
There's laws about the mandatory review of placement in segregation, which is the most austere form of confinement in Canada. Those laws around segregation, around mental health care, around transfer, were not respected.
So, in Ashley Smith's case, those laws were broken?
Yes.
Corrections Canada was supposed to review Ashley's file after she spent 60 days in segregation. Well, they got around that law with a bureaucratic sleight of hand. They just moved her to another segregation cell in another institution. That way, the 60-day clock started all over again.
She was moved from one segregation cell to another, to another, to another.
And they justified it how?
Their own operational requirements. They felt that they had exhausted themselves at a particular place.
But they were giving themselves respite, so they offloaded her to somebody else?
Well, they certainly moved her, and moved her frequently, and they did not move her according to the policy requirements for transfers.
One of the few visitors Ashley was allowed was prison advocate Kim Pate.
She wanted someone to talk to. She wanted something to do. She wanted to go home.
She kept acting out. She kept pushing them, pushing their buttons. She was the architect, in sounds, of her own misfortune in some way.
Well, that's certainly the image that that corrections would want us to believe. So I'm not suggesting that Ashley or anybody else in those situations is easy to deal with, but they're in a system that is well-resourced to address those needs. And if they can't, then there are mechanisms that they could get her into a mental health setting.
Did Ashley want to die, do you think?
When I saw Ashley, I don't think she wanted to die. I know that she was using tying the ligatures around her neck to just pass out, to sleep. She was using it sometimes because she knew staff would go in to see her then. And I can't imagine craving human contact enough that I would do something that I know is going to result in a violent intervention.
Hey, quit fighting! I'm not fighting!
When I last saw Ashley, I asked a number of people to intervene right up to the regional and national level. And to my knowledge, nobody did.
They just shuffled Ashley from one prison to another, monitoring her every move. A prison camera will also be recording on the day she dies.
Knowing that you're watching somebody in the last minutes of their life is a very difficult thing to do. The correctional staff on site at that time, of course, they didn't know that. They didn't know that they were dealing with somebody in the last moments of their life.
It was horrible, but I think I saw it 3 times. It's there. I can see it right now. It's there.
Is that why you don't sleep at night?
Yeah, I think so.
You don't
But
sleep.
I don't dream about it. I don't have nightmares about Ashley. I don't have nightmares about Ashley. I have daymares. Yeah, it's fixed there forever.
Coralie wants the videotape of her daughter's final moments made public. Corrections has fought her at every turn, but a judge has allowed the Fifth Estate to view it and tell you what's on it. Grand Valley Institution, October 19th, 2007. A guard radios for help.
Smith is currently laying on the floor, has a ligature tied around her neck. She's trying to choke herself out. She's in the crack behind the door, or behind the bed.
It is my belief that there's not a single person that expected, including Ashley, that expected Ashley Smith to die that moment.
Because she expected people to come in, and they didn't.
And they thought it would be just another day at work.
You can hear guards call Ashley's name through the door. She doesn't respond. But guards don't go into her cell. The order had come down.
And they just patrol just ran with them, and there's a camera. So did they talk to you? They haven't got in the cell yet, have they? No. Okay. Well, as long as she's breathing, then we don't need to go in. That's what they told me. That she put a ligature around her neck. So. Yeah. Okay. All right.
The protocol was very clear.
Jason Godin, Ontario president of the Guards Union, insists they had no choice.
Our members were not to enter Ashley Smith's cell until she stopped breathing. There was a tremendous amount of direction given, verbal direction, to all the members from all levels of management. You're not going to go in the cell until she stops breathing, and if you go in that cell, you could suffer the repercussions, a disciplinary investigation. You could lose your job.
As long as she's breathing, we don't need to go in. Okay. Okay. We'll phone in before we open the door. Unless you and then she's suddenly stopped breathing, go ahead.
12 minutes later, Ashley is still not moving.
They're talking about, making sure that certain people are present, that certain policies are being followed, that camera is running, it's not running.
Opening cell 1.
At one point, they do go in to the cell. Then they...
And what do they do when they're in the cell?
Very little.
And they went in and they come out, and they went in and they come out, and nobody approached her. I mean, this girl's down on the floor. What human beings do that?
Call the nurse for healthcare stuff when they come.
By the time guards cut the ligature and realize Ashley is unconscious, it's too late. These were 7 guards who, for between 25 and 30 minutes, watched a 19-year-old girl kill herself.
Those officers took a choice and
Lose my job? Have somebody die in front of me?
they didn't want to stand outside the cell and watch her die either.
But they did.
Their livelihood was threatened.
I find myself in immense difficulty understanding it.
Would you have gone in?
Would I have gone in? I've asked myself that question. Could I put myself in their shoes, and what would I do? For me, knowing that somebody's life is at risk and they're just on the other side of a door, I think I would do everything in my power to get through that door.
After serving 3 years, 11 months, and 15 days, inmate Ashley Smith is pronounced dead at 8:10 a.m.
Who gave that order, Hannah? Who gave the order, don't intervene, if she's still breathing?
Internal escort check, radio check.
Loud and clear.
Roger.
I miss you. Your mother said hello.
Herb has been coming to his daughter's grave every day for 2 years. Ever since Ashley killed herself in federal custody in front of 7 guards who did nothing to stop her.
Thinking about you a lot, Ash.
After Ashley's death, Grand Valley's deputy warden and warden lost their jobs. A manager and 3 guards were also fired and charged with criminal negligence causing death. Union spokesman Jason Godin believes his guards took the fall for higher-ups. Were these guys scapegoated?
Absolutely. They were scapegoated by senior management in correctional services. I use the term they were thrown to the dogs, they were thrown to the wolves. There was a cover-up. This union has made that very clear since the very beginning. There's been a cover-up. We blame solely the administration. We blame the federally sentenced women's sector. We blame Corrections Canada. There was daily direction given right from the highest levels of management all the way to the frontline staff. And we're not talking once or twice, we're talking every day, repeatedly. You're not to go in the cell, this is your orders.
Who gave that order, Hannah? Those are the questions. We can't bring Ashley back, but those are the questions. Who gave the order to keep that child, we're talking about a child in the youth center, segregated that length of time? Who gave the order, don't intervene, if she's still breathing?
That's what no one wants to talk about. Charges against the guards were dropped. They got their jobs back. Now none of them wants to come on camera. For Canada's Correctional Service, the case is closed.
The Ashley Smith case is a sad and tragic one. In fact, she probably never should have ended up in a prison. But it is a classic model of the failure of our healthcare system and then our correction system to adequately care for the mentally ill in society.
Peter Van Loan, the minister responsible for Canada's prison system, is satisfied Ashley's case was thoroughly investigated and appropriate action taken.
People were disciplined.
But people very low on the ladder were disciplined.
No, wardens as well were suspended and disciplined and dismissed right up to the top of the institution. So,
but where is the top? Who is?
It's not fair to say that discipline was only at the bottom. It was throughout the institution. So people paid consequences for misconduct from that side.
What, did the person who said don't go into her cell while she's breathing?
I'm not going to comment on any specifics that might play into a lawsuit, though. Well, clearly I wasn't in the prison at the time. I wasn't even minister at the time, so
no, but you're accountable for it.
You're best to talk to Corrections Canada about those kinds of details.
Corrections Canada refused any interviews about Ashley Smith's incarceration or her death. Since Ashley died, 17 more inmates have committed suicide in federal custody. Prison investigator Howard Sapers predicts if Corrections Canada refuses to make significant improvements, more prisoners will die.
We don't have a sign over our prisons that says, abandon all hope, all ye who enter, right? It's called the Correctional Service for a reason. People are sent to prison as a punishment imposed by the court. The prison is not supposed to add pain to that punishment.
Canada should know this is what's happening to our young people. There's young people in jail for minor infractions, for mental conditions, not being treated and held for 5, 6, 7, 8 years. Do people really know about that? I don't think so. It'll never be right for Ashley. They took her life. Ashley didn't take her life. They did. Ashley was driven because the girl that left here was not suicidal. She was not scarred. She was not gouged. She was not trying to choke herself out. Where did she get it? That's what they taught her. That's not what she was taught at home. Through the whole system, they failed her. They all failed her.